Hi, I'm Dr. Joseph Lamb. This is a late reposting of our Women's Health series from Thursday. We had some technical issues, and I'm finally getting around to it on Sunday afternoon to reopen the discussion and do a reposting. This is part of our Women's Health series, and it's a really important topic, and I wanted to take the time to get it done right. So we're talking about nutritional and botanical approaches to help with the changes and maintenance of health in a woman's life. So, last week, or going back 10 days ago, so it'd be 2 weeks ago now, we were discussing hormonal replacement therapy. And when we did so, we discussed it in the relatively narrow context of perimenopause and menopause. And we also briefly touched upon controlling ovulation with oral contraceptives. But this week, I want to talk about women's health and nutritional and botanical approaches that have a good evidence base for them, that there's good support for the changes that they make in a woman's life. Now, first and foremost, and this came out as part of our discussion last week, lifestyle approaches are really, really important. The foods that we eat, the sleep that we get, the exercise we do, the way we view our world, so our cognitive behavioral approaches, all of those make a big, big difference in terms of where we are and what we do. So it becomes really crucially important not to shortchange any of those. First real experience of this was years ago in a small study that we did looking at patients with type 2 diabetes, and we were trying to provide nutritional support for coping with that. I realized that no matter how good your nutritional support is, people could basically out-eat or overeat the benefit. So, not every woman going through life's changes, not every woman coping with PMS or perimenopause or menopause or even postmenopause, women don't necessarily need hormonal therapies and they don't necessarily need botanical therapies, but they may need some nutritional supplementation and they definitely need the right lifestyle. One of the things that's really crucially important is to understand why is it that there's dysregulation. Is it just dysregulation of the sex hormones, or is it dysregulation of our energy utilization, or is it our stress response, or is it our immune response? And how do all of those fit together? And is it, our hypothalamic, pituitary, adrenal, thyroid, sex gonad axis? All of these pieces play a role. And one of the things we have to think about is, what is the purpose of all of this endocrine signaling that takes place? At the highest level, it's to keep us alive and to keep us functioning well and to keep us basically being happy. So, in terms of keeping us safe, we have our stress response, which is the ability basically of the body to respond to an acute event. If a saber-toothed tiger were to come running into this room, or if the ceiling fell in on me, I would want to be able to run and get away. I would want to be able to fight if I needed to fight. It would be the classic fight and flight response. And that is driven by adrenaline, epinephrine, two names for the same hormone, one British, one more American. And, but the concept basically of that quick response, as our nervous system stimulates the adrenal glands, there's that sudden release of the epinephrine, which allows me to be drawing upon all of my reserves immediately to have that fight and flight response, to be able to escape or fight to live another day. Afterwards, once I've dealt with the acute stress, if I've survived, if I've been the victor or I've been the fleetest of foot trying to get away, I need to be able to build up my reserves, and I need to be able to deal with the stress of it. And that's where insulin and cortisol come in and play such an important role. Cortisol basically being the adrenal hormone that helps us relax. You know, Robert Sapolsky, the anthropologist and experimental biologist, field biologist, looking at our close relatives, the baboons, has done a lot of work with the concept of, you know, how do animals respond to stress? And he wrote a classic book now called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. You know, when a flock of zebras, a herd of zebras is out basically having their daily breakfast, they're grazing, they're having a good day, and suddenly a lioness comes hunting and is right there and panics the herd, and the herd takes off, and the lioness takes off afterwards. Well, the hunt is engaged, and the zebras are running, and the zebras run and run until either the lioness tires, which probably doesn't happen very often, or the lioness catches the slowest or the sickest or the oldest or the youngest of the zebras. And when that happens, the zebras don't keep running for hours. They don't keep running for miles. They run about another 50 to 100 yards and they stop. And instead of having the response of, oh my God, what happened to Charlene? Or, oh my God, what happened to Andy? They stop, look down at the grass and say, looks pretty good. Time to start eating. Cortisol is helping them buffer the emotional response. Cortisol is also telling them that they need to build back up their energy. Cortisol is helping with insulin to get blood sugar back into the cells, building up those glycogen reserves so that the animal can run again if it needs to. But it is moved from the sympathetic state, the fight and flight response, to the tend and befriend, the relax, the restore response of the parasympathetic nervous system. Next level down hormonally is thyroid, which plays such an important role because it kind of derives that basic tone. It's like the idle setting where epinephrine is stomping on the accelerator in response to a stress. Thyroid is more like the idle setting on the car. It keeps it from stalling when you're just idling along. Very, very important because it's going to determine how much energy we burn on each given day, how much heat we generate, how much we need just to be here. Not doing much, just here. And then the next level down of hormones, important level, and we've left out several along the way, and we've left out all sorts of, systems like the endocannabinoid system, and, we haven't discussed some of the androgens that play a role, like DHEA sulfate. But when we come down to that next level, at the most basic of kind of purposes, estrogen and progesterone in a woman and testosterone in a man are all about reproduction. They're about giving rise to that next generation. But they are the lowest level on this hierarchy. And you can imagine that on this hierarchy, if epinephrine's not working, if insulin cortisol's not working, if thyroid's not working, it's going to be hard to get the sex hormones regulated. And almost no matter how much you would give in terms of, exogenous outside source estrogen or progesterone or testosterone, you may not be able to easily adapt and help a woman find that sweet spot. to help your patient find where they need to be, to help an individual feel well. Sidney Baker, who's kind of one of the founders of functional medicine, had 2 TAC rules. And one of his TAC rules was if you're sitting on a TAC, removing one doesn't make you 50% better. So this is about understanding cause and finding out what's causing the difficulty and exploring all the causes, looking at what's needed to add or what's needed to be taken away to make life healthy. And then the other TAC rule was if you're sitting on a TAC, it takes an awful lot of aspirin to make you feel better. And, that's kind of saying, when we're using hormones kind of allopathically or medicinally, and we're giving levels that kind of paste that estrogen level right up there, pin it up against the roof in terms of a really high level, and give that during perimenopause and menopause, we may not really be addressing underlying causes. So when we start thinking about the changes in a woman's life, when we start thinking about some of the disordered physiology, there's some real opportunities to think about the differences. One of the things when you talk about any hormone is not just to talk about production, but it's also to talk about the metabolism. During anorexia nervosa, during eating disorders, when body content gets low enough, women don't ovulate because there's a very simple reason. If the body doesn't have enough energy to support even itself, the last thing it wants to do is have a pregnancy, which increases the demand for calories and support and sharing of nutrition with another human being who you're creating. So ovulation stops. So, when you think about, kind of menstrual regularities, when you think about anovulatory states, you've got to think about whether nutrition is adequate or not. It's kind of been interesting over the last, I guess it's 90 years now. From the 1930s onward, there's kind of been, a fall in terms of a drop in the age at which women enter menarche, which is the first menses, the first period that they experience. And it used to be pretty typical in the 1930s for that to be like 13, 14, even 15 years old when a woman would have her first period. And, during, the 50s and the 60s, the post-war period, after the Depression, after the rationing of World War II in the United States, we started having earlier menses, and that proceeded right through the 1960s and the 1970s. And when I was in med school, we were taught that that was because of better nutrition. But, that has continued to drop. And now we're having children as early as 8 and 9 years old have their menses. And it's not necessarily related to better nutrition. We're recognizing it's related to xenoestrogens, foreign estrogens like plastics and pesticides. It's also related to young women reaching higher fat masses, a higher percent body fat. Going back to the anorexia point, if you don't have enough body fat and calories to support yourself, you don't have enough for pregnancy. And as women matured and came to the onset of menses, they were generating their fat stores. Their bodies were becoming womanly. And now we have little girls having significantly elevated fat stores, and this may be part of the contribution. So, this goes to, you need adequate nutrition to ovulate, but you also need to make sure that you're getting the right kind of nutrition, or you're going to lead to changes that you don't want, like an estrogen dominant state in early menses in a teenage girl. So finding that sweet spot's really important. In a study that was done, going back 3 decades ago now, I guess, it's kind of hard to think about that, but nearly 3 decades in a study done by Neil Bernard at the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine and Dr. Donna Herlock and others, they did a study using a vegetarian diet and young women having PMS. And what they demonstrated was that there was a reduction in symptoms eating a vegetarian diet. So the diet was cleaner, obviously, less pesticides probably because they weren't concentrated in animal products. There was probably less exogenous hormones because there weren't the presence of like growth hormones and other stimulatory hormones that we give to animals. And also probably there were a lot more phytonutrients present, like from the brassica vegetables, the cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, watercress, and others, basically diindole methane and 3-indole carbinol directly affecting the metabolism of our own natural estrogen and making for the efficient metabolism to less potent forms, to the weaker 2-hydroxy form. And then, with a vegetarian diet and the green leafy vegetables and an increased amount of the natural form of folic acid, the methylated forms of folic acid, you would get increased methylation and a drive for catechol O-methyltransferase to take place and to convert the hydroxy forms of the estrogen to methoxylated forms that could be, or methylated forms, which could be cleared from the body more easily. The power of what we eat makes a big difference, and the power of what we eat continues to make a big difference. If we're storing toxins, if we've got insulin resistance as we approach perimenopause, then, we're going to have relatively higher fat stores. We're going to be converting testosterone to estrogen. We may, because of increased insulin, have increased testosterone. We're going to have hormonal dysregulation. We may have estrogen dominance. And given that one of the early changes during perimenopause is actually falling progesterone levels, we may need to balance those. So, first step, making sure all of these things take place, making sure that, we're having the right foods in to support nutrition, eating enough flax ligands, for example, getting exercise, staying away from alcohol, all those influence the production of the 2-hydroxy forms of estrogen. Looking at fiber and looking at gut health in terms of the impact on glucuronidase and certain anaerobic bacteria, which could negatively impact the metabolism of estrogens. And so getting gut health balanced, getting appropriate exercise, which helps maintain, the appropriate levels of DHEA and testosterone that are important for women as they are for men. All of these things become crucially important. Not having an estrogen excess, not having a fat excess, not having toxicity because we've been storing toxins away in our fat for a long time, getting exercise to maintain our bone health. All of these are really crucial pieces. And they can all be looked at, and you can measure your hormone levels and get a sense of where you are. One of the things, that we're seeing more and more of is estrogen dominance in young women. And we're seeing this kind of PMS pattern. And a really nice botanical in that setting is chasteberry or chaste tree berry. It helps raise progesterone, helps buffer that higher estrogen level. It doesn't regulate ovulation, but it does help control the symptoms, and it's a nice adjunct with an appropriate diet and lifestyle for PMS, and it's probably my go-to for estrogen dominance in that regard. You know, if you've got an excess of beta-glucuronidase, calcium glucarate is helpful for leading to that balance and can be added as a supplement. You know, as we kind of look at the changes that take place, we have to decide what's going on. You know, it's classically thought that perimenopause and menopause is all about falling estrogen levels, but actually progesterone starts trending downward first. And after progesterone trends downward, the next thing that starts happening is estrogen starts coming down, but the estrogen levels fluctuate, and it leads to periods of estrogen dominance compared to the progesterone, or periods where that rapidly falling estrogen level plays an important role. And it's actually kind of interesting if you look at animal studies in which they've tried to mimic the kind of condition of perimenopause and menopause. We don't have a good model, and that's because it doesn't look like all of the symptoms, the vasomotor symptoms that a woman would experience, like hot flashes and night sweats, some of the emotional symptoms, some of the cognitive symptoms, some of the aches and pains, and some of the genitourinary symptoms. Some of these symptoms don't seem to be just related to falling estrogen or falling progesterone levels. They also seem to be related to the time we spend in the sympathetic state, going back to, are we relaxing adequately? And that may be part of the reason why traditional medicine has seen some success in using the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, a class of drugs that include like Prozac and Lexapro and Paxil and the like. Zoloft has used them effectively for managing some of the symptoms of perimenopause. But, picking the right thing at the right time makes a big difference. So when it comes to some of the botanicals available for perimenopause and menopause, black cohosh kind of fits into the category of a progestin, like a natural form of progesterone. Yams are a source of natural progesterone, but it's not identical. It has to be chemically modified to become true progesterone. There's a progestin present, but it's not true progesterone. Red clover, kudzu, soy, hops, 8-perennyl nerinogen, which is in hops, is probably the most potent of phytoestrogens, having 1/10 the potency of estradiol. All of these have some ability to ameliorate the symptoms. One that I particularly like because of its because of the receptor that it hits, is Siberian rhubarb. Ropantacin and ropantagin are the active compounds. So to back up for a little bit, in our bodies, when we make a hormone, because they have so many effects in so many different tissues, and because different tissues have different responsibilities when they get that message, it's not a simple matter of, oh, there's an estrogen receptor in every cell. There's all sorts of different sorts of receptors. There's nuclear receptors, which turn on DNA. There's cellular receptors in the cytoplasma, which have impact upon energy production and the such. And broadly, these are the non-nuclear receptors, or what's frequently called the non-classic receptors. and then the classic receptors. When it comes to the classic receptors for estrogen, you have an alpha and you have a beta. Alpha, Greek letter for A, like accelerate. It's the one that kind of turns on and drives cellular reproduction, for example. It's the one that drives, the lining of the uterus to get ready, to be have a fertilized egg be implanted. It's the one that drives breast production during pregnancy, so breast cell reproduction and the development of milk. It's the one that most drives kind of vaginal epithelium and keeps it healthy and keeps it from becoming atrophic or dry or uncomfortable. And then you've got the beta receptor, which has many similar effects, but it's more of a brake on certain parts of the system. And it's this blend in our body of which receptors hit by which estrogen and which receptor is active at which point in time. Well, ropantocin and ropantogin, natural phytochemicals, natural phytoestrogens, they don't have a very good affinity, meaning they don't bind very well to the alpha receptor. They bind to the beta receptor. And so they don't drive reproduction of cells. They don't drive that thickening of the lining, getting ready for implant. But, interestingly, they do help with the vasomotor symptoms like the hot flashes and the night sweats. They help with kind of some of the emotional and cognitive pieces. They help with aches and pains. They have some anti-inflammatory effects, but they're not very good for the genitourinary part. So they're not going to be good for incontinence. They're not going to be good for vaginal dryness, but they have an ability to be safely administered without needing to give estrogen. So I find it particularly helpful in women who, for some reason, we don't want to give traditional estrogen hormonal compounds, whether pharmaceutical or bioidentical compounded ones. I find it helpful in women who may be already taking a low dose of hormones and need a little bit more activity. It's helpful in that early phase when you don't want to put a woman on birth control pills and she's still ovulating. And the concern is that kind of the natural bioidentical hormones aren't potent enough to control ovulation and thus provide contraception, but you need something for the symptoms and you don't want to use a low dose oral contraceptive pill. It's all a matter of figuring out where a woman happens to be. It's a matter of thinking about the other pieces, like, is there a need to support serotonin? Is there a need to support the adrenal glands? Is there a need to support the thyroid gland? Is there a need just to clean up the diet a little bit? Is it time for spring cleaning and, a detoxification and thinking about all the things that we've accumulated through years of life? There's lots of opportunities and places to help a woman have a healthier, better life. And those are the sorts of things we do at the Personalized Lifestyle Medicine Center in Gig Harbor. This was Dr. Joe Lamb. It's Sunday afternoon, kind of out of phase with our normal Thursdays, but I wanted to get this recorded. Tomorrow, we're going to have a gut health lecture. We're going to have a cardiovascular health lecture, and we're going to have our Monday afternoon coffee break with Dr. Michael Stone and myself. And special kind of neat news coming up this Saturday will be 90 minutes of authoring, a special offering from the Consilience Partnership. So thanks a lot. I hope you've had a great Sunday afternoon and take care.